The defensive line got taken care of on day 2 with the additions of TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson. I'm going to break those picks down for you today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, if you were hoping for additions to the defensive line on day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft, you certainly got that. And so I'm going to break down these selections. TJ Sanders, the Bills' first day 2 pick, and then Landon Jackson out of Arkansas with their second day 2 pick. So we'll talk about each of those selections, and then later on, we'll set the tone for day 3. And there's some players I'd love for the Bills to draft on day 3. We'll talk about that in segment 3. But we start with the selection of defensive tackle TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. And the Bills traded up with the Chicago Bears to acquire Sanders. And this is a very interesting trade because the Bills actually traded up and gained draft capital. That's not very normal. So the Bills gave up 56, 62, and 109 for 41, 72, and 240. And according to the Rich Hill trade value chart, the Bills gave up 700 points worth of draft capital, and they gained 721 points of draft capital. So the Bills gained 21 points of draft capital, which is the equivalent of pick 175, a 5th-round pick. That's kind of crazy. And you still have the same number of picks. Not often that you trade up and also gain more draft capital. So whatever you think about trading up for TJ Sanders, the Bills actually got more draft capital by doing it, which is pretty unique. TJ Sanders, 6'3" and 7/8, 305 pounds. He weighed 305 at his pro day where he ran a 4.95 40-yard dash. Has a wingspan of 80 inches and 7/8, which is 65th percentile, 10.25-inch hands. Has an RAS score of a 927 out of 10. This is a very athletic player. He's 21 years old, turns 22 in July. He's from Marion, South Carolina, was an all-state basketball player in high school, in addition to playing football at South Carolina, 1,187 snaps, 18 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, had a pass rush win rate in 2024 of 12.6%, which is very good. So the strengths of TJ Sanders, really it's the athleticism. He's explosive. He's flexible. He's a type of penetration style defensive tackle that can really get into gaps and get into the backfield and make plays behind the line of scrimmage. Quick and loose, right? He's a guy that has really good flexibility throughout his frame to hinge and pivot and turn and work laterally. And he's got the type of juice that's going to put some stress on an offensive lineman's foot speed to be able to slide laterally and stay square to him. And he's got a slipperiness about him when he gets to the edges of a block. He's got the ability to really flatten and turn and corner, and he's got good contact balance and body control. I love his pass rush repertoire. A lot of variety with his hand moves. He's got a very good bull rush. He loves to convert speed to power and then has counters off of that. A good variety of different ways that he can get home with hand technique. And he's got good length. He's got quick and violent hands. There's a lot to like about him as an interior pass rusher. And I would say as a run defender, he's pretty firm at the point of attack. Now, he's not massive. He's not 320, 330 pounds, 350 pounds. He's not that type of guy. But for a 305-pound defensive tackle, I think he's pretty firm at the point of attack when defending the run. So the Bills got themselves a dynamic interior pass rusher that projects as a penetration style player. So what are the concerns with TJ Sanders? Well, I think he's got good but not great functional strength, and he's got a bit of a narrow build. He's, basically 6'4", 305 pounds. You wish he had a little bit more width to his frame, but he's got some narrowness about his build, and that's going to really put an onus on him to be consistent with not only technique but playing with good leverage and low pads. So this is definitely a player that you look at more as a penetration style guy, which is kind of what they have in Ed Oliver. And so, no, he doesn't necessarily address the need of a one-tech nose tackle that could platoon with Daquan Jones and succeed Daquan Jones. I'd say that's not at all what he is, but you certainly got one heck of a dynamic interior pass rusher and penetration style player. Brandon Beane had some comments on this addition. He said that he's a 3 technique first that provides inside rush. And they added a guy that can pair well with Ed Oliver on clear passing downs. He did say that he can play the nose tackle spot, but it would be kind of secondary. They envision him as a 3 technique, which is interesting because you have Ed Oliver and you have a healthy commitment to Ed Oliver as the 3 tech. And I don't know that they'd be a good pair on the field together. And this is ideally more players that I guess in some ways are redundant. But to what being said there about on obvious passing downs, putting them together, you have a lot of upside for how those guys can rush. And I would go as far as to say that this has the potential to be the best pair of interior pass rushing defensive tackles that we've seen in Buffalo under Sean McDermott. So that's an exciting element of what this has the potential to become. Brandon Beane was asked about the need for a 1-tech. Of course, that's something I've been talking a lot about. Daquan Jones aging last year of his deal. You don't really have another 1-tech on the roster outside of Zion Logue, and I don't think much of Zion Logue. And so Brandon Beane, when asked about that, this is what he said. He said it's harder to find inside rushers than a 2-down nose tackle. Said they could find a nose tackle in free agency. He said guys with inside rush, those are the guys that get paid, the ones that know how to rush the passer. And he also said that this move does position Dwayne Carter as a backup 1 technique, which is fascinating because that's not really the style of player I envision he would become based on the player he was at Duke. In fact, I guess you would say a lot of the same things that I just said about TJ Sanders about Dwayne Carter coming out of Duke. And I guess they're going to bulk him up and ask him to play behind Daquan Jones. So we'll see how that goes. That's definitely a fallout storyline of this selection that he hinted at this. He said he's going to be on standby. Dwayne Carter's on standby to find out if he's going to major as a nose tackle or major as a 3-tech. Well, we got the answer. He's going to major as a 1-tech, and that's going to be a bit of a transition and shift for him. Now, he played some of that last year. That did happen, but I don't think it's a very natural spot for him. And so we'll see what happens with added mass and of course, the added emphasis of playing in that position. So some other thoughts about this move. It certainly signals to me the style of defense that the Bills want to play. They want to focus in on splash plays, negative plays, and turnovers. And when you have interior rush, you have penetration ability, you can wreak havoc, you can create chaos, and you can get negative plays and turnovers. And that's kind of been an important part of what this defense has become. Pressure in the face of a quarterback is a good thing. Interior penetration is a good thing. It's a lot more valuable than just having a big space-eating player. But you still kind of feel the need for more options to play that 1-tech spot. So there's definitely two sides of that conversation. I also think about this team last year on third down. It was a terrible third down defense. Couldn't get off the field. We're talking bottom of the league in third down stop rate. The Bills gave up like the fourth most first downs of any team in the league. A player like TJ Sanders is going to help with that. Now, we'd love to have a big-bodied nose that can make the defense more stout in the middle, keep that second level a little more clean to allow them to run free and pursue. And while I don't think the Bills are closer to getting that figured out, you'd like to think that their ability to rush the passer on third downs and get off the field, which was the biggest problem with the defense, that this is a player that can help with that. And certainly the guy we're going to talk about next is another one that can help with that in Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. We're going to break down that pick here for you next. Be sure to stick with me. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. You can post your job using LinkedIn's new feature that actually helps you write job descriptions, and they can quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. You can add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to get those qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, next up, defensive end Landon Jackson, pick 72 in the third round. So Brandon Beane's streak of always picking in third round continues. That guy will not be denied the opportunity to pick in the third round. This is now the third time as general manager of the Bills where he entered the draft without a third-round pick, but still picked in the third round. This is important to him. So let's talk Landon Jackson, who was always destined to be a Bill. You heard me talking about this for the last couple of weeks about him as a possibility. I didn't think it would be at 72. I thought it would be a lot higher. And so this is definitely a value pick in my view. Landon Jackson, 6'6", 264 pounds, 33 3/4 on the arm length, 10-inch hands, 83 5/8 on the wingspan, which is 92nd percentile. There's a lot of length to Landon Jackson. Relative athleticism score of a 9.78 out of 10. Very athletic player. Ran a 40-yard dash in 4.68 seconds, 40.5-inch vertical jump, and a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump. Those are high marks. He's 22 years old, turns 23 in January. He's from Texas. His mom was a college volleyball player. His dad is 6'11", played college basketball. His younger brother is a 5-star recruit that is committed to Texas, the Longhorns, in 2025. He was the Texas 4A Defensive Player of the Year in high school. He started his college career at LSU. He was at LSU for 2021 and then spent the next 3 seasons at Arkansas. For his career, 1,594 snaps, 28 tackles for loss, 16 sacks for his career in the SEC. So let's talk about his strengths and the concerns. The strengths, I would say that he comes across to me as a very clean fit to this defense. The player comp that I really like for Landon Jackson is actually Montez Sweat. And Jackson has a lot of length. We talked about the wingspan, very powerful hands, and he's got violent hands. And he's one of these pass rushers that is not going to run circles around people, right? There's 2 different types of edge rushers. The ones that have burst and bend and can run those circles around people. And there's the ones that can reduce rush angles and play through blocks. And honestly, like, that's what actually works in the NFL. There's a lot more power style rushers that are productive than guys that just run circles around people. You got to be able to play through contact at the next level. And that's really what Landon Jackson specializes in, playing through blocks and making plays. Which he does with, like I said, length, hand power, a lot of different hand moves to be able to stack, disengage, and find the football. And I think he's got really good finishing burst. I think he's got very good contact balance to play through those edges of blocks. Hands are sudden, they're violent, and he uses them to gain early control of reps. And when you think about that combination of quickness off the ball with length, with heavy hands, that enables him to win early. And I think he's got good rush variety. A lot of different ways that he can win. Excellent inside rip move. That's something that really stood out on tape. I think TJ Sanders in his bull rush and Landon Jackson in the inside rip were two really good kind of signature moves for these guys. I think Landon Jackson, and something I can really appreciate about him is he's a self-aware player. He knows his skill set. He knows how he's engineered to beat blocks, and that's how he plays. He doesn't try to be something that he's not, which I really appreciate in his style, and I think he's a very good run defender. You're going to feel very comfortable with his ability to play over offensive tackles, squeeze down, and fit the run and be a good contained player. I think him and Rousseau is going to be a heck of a pair of guys defending the run and setting the edge. When it comes to concerns with Landon Jackson, I would say that he's kind of tightly wound in the hips, where that ability to really bend and be flexible, it's not really there. He's not a guy that is going to run those 45-degree angles to the ground and get around an offensive tackle. That's not his game. He's not a bendy guy. And, that shows up in other ways with change of directions, cornering. That's not really the strengths of his game. He's a very linear athlete, linearly explosive, but, the lack of fluidity in his hips kind of takes away from some of those other elements, and he's a bit high cut. He's another guy that I think has to be committed to playing with good leverage, because if not, he's going to be a little top heavy, and that's going to be tough for him to win and control blocks. It's also something you got to mention, some injuries that he had in high school. He tore his ACL in 2018. He broke his ankle in 2020. He retore the ACL in 2020. So a couple of things there in 2018 and 2020. The good news is he did not miss any time in 2022, 2023, or 2024. Some comments from Brandon Beane on Landon Jackson. Called him a high-character guy with ideal DNA, complimented the length and athleticism, discussed how he faced premium talent in the SEC and produced, said he's smart and knows how to rush with feel, said he has good awareness, called him tough, called him a dog, and said he has everything we want in the DNA of a defensive lineman. I'm fired up about this pick. This is one I really like. I was hanging out live in the Discord channel, the Herd Mentality Discord channel, several people in there just enjoying the draft together. And I spent, I would say, most of day 2 doing that. And, we're getting excited for the Bills pick. And it just kind of felt so obvious that this is what the Bills were going to do. The Bills clearly expressed interest in Landon Jackson. And I was surprised that he made it this far. And you kind of saw a bit of a run on edge rushers. And I thought that it was like a talent cliff where if you didn't get Landon Jackson, the drop-off was pretty steep. And they got him. And I was nervous when Detroit traded up that they were going to snipe the Bills, and they wound up picking Isaac Tesla. And so really excited to see Landon Jackson land in Buffalo, where I think there's a really attractive skill set and a really clean projection to this defense. And so you take a look at this defensive end rotation, and it's looking pretty good. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa. You forget the Bills got that guy. I was watching the Embedded the other day, and I was like, oh, yeah, Joey Bosa's a Bill. That's pretty cool. Michael Hoyt, AJ Epinesa, Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon. You got waves here. You got waves of rushers. Guys should be fresh. You got talent. You got depth. I'm excited about that room. Now, obviously, Bosa, Epinesa, both expiring contracts. But I also am curious to see what this unlocks for Michael Hoyt, where I think they could play him in a variety of ways. They could really tap into the versatility. They can have him play like a true Sam linebacker role. And so where you're thinking about, where do the Bills and their front, where do they get bigger? Maybe that's part of the equation. But that's a ton of depth. That's as deep of a defensive end room as there has been in Buffalo. And so now I've said 2 pretty big things. I said Sanders and Oliver have the potential to be the best interior pass rush duo yet under McDermott and Bean. And now I think comfortably this is the deepest collection of defensive end talent they've had under Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean. Expectations are and should be high for this defense. I mean, you're talking about your top 3 picks in the draft, the corner, D-tackle, and a DN. You sign Joey Bosa. You sign Michael Hoyt. You sign Larry Ogunjobi. You bring back Tre'Davious White, Dane Jackson, Derek Forrest. Like, you have done a ton here. We better not be talking about this defense not being very, very good next year. I think there's a lot of pressure for that to happen. These investments are clear. Haven't done much for the offense. It's nice to have Josh Palmer, but that's about it. This defense, boy, it doesn't have a lot of excuses for not being a high caliber unit, especially with a defensive-minded head coach. Expectations are high. They've earned that with what they've done. Time to deliver. Time for this defense to not be a problem anymore in the postseason. I'm excited because this is what needed to happen. That's what needed to happen. And so on the other side of it, we'll talk about the themes of this draft class so far. We'll talk about day 3. There are some players I would love for the Bills to draft. I'll tell you who they are here in just a moment. Folks, be sure to stick with me. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my team or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And it's not just the NBA playoffs. They've got every sport, NHL, Major League Baseball is rocking right now. You can get in on all of that action. There's some football future stuff out there as well. So check it out. Do not miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's talk about some themes here so far. Let's talk about day 3. Let's get ready for the final day of the 2025 NFL Draft. Came into this draft feeling like the Bills had 3 big boxes to check. Corner, D-tackle, D-end. Well, they've done that. I'm really satisfied with what they did at corner and D-end. I like TJ Sanders. I think he's got a chance to really help this defense in some very important, critical ways. But you still kind of need that option to play the nose. And I'm hesitant in believing that Dwayne Carter can be that guy. And so, yes, they did check a defensive tackle box. They've helped the defensive tackle room in a very meaningful way. But we need to make sure that there's a good plan at one tech. And if that's going to be Daquan Jones and Dwayne Carter, okay, better be right. You'd hate for that to spoil everything that you've done so far for this defense. So they checked the big boxes in basically that I envision that they should and would. But then the other undeniable theme of what's happened here is this defense got way more athletic. Way more athletic. Max Harrison, 9.63 out of 10 RAS score. Ran a 4.28 40. Landon Jackson, 9.78 out of 10 RAS score. Told you about the 40-yard dash, the vertical, the broad jump. High marks there. TJ Sanders, a 9.27 out of 10 RAS score. This defense added athleticism in a big, big way with these 3 selections. And so that's important. That's necessary. That's kind of a thing with this Bills defense is scheme sound, some good players, but do they have guys that can really scoot? They do now. They do now. Also can't help but notice that all 3 of these selections were SEC defenders. And, the Bills for a while there, very light on SEC players. That's changed quite a bit recently. And the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, they certainly like to pick players from the SEC. So I'm happy to see that. Let's set the tone here for day 3. The Bills are loaded with picks. They still have 7 picks on day 3. In the 4th round, 132. In the 5th round, 169, 170, and 173. In the 6th round, 177 and 206. And now they have a 7th round pick, 240. So potentially 7 more selections. I don't know if that's going to happen. The Bills should probably look at that run of picks, 169, 170, 173, 177. And maybe if you can move up a little from 132 or something, like you got some chances here. Maybe package a couple of them to move up in the 5th or maybe something like that. But you should probably look to package this and get some very specific targets. Speaking of targets, there are some players here I'd love for the Bills to get. Positions that I'm targeting: receiver, tight end, linebacker, a defensive tackle double dip, running back perhaps, offensive line, punter. Let me tell you about some of my favorite options. Right now I'm starting to feel really, really into the idea of a wide receiver with the next selection. And Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, I'd be swooning. I would be swooning. That's a vertical receiver. I think he's a little bit forgotten right now. Big-time punt return upside. I love that so much. Jalen Royals out of Utah State. One of my guys. I did an episode with Brett Whitefield of on First Read, NFL First Read, where we declared our guy at each position. My guy at receiver was Jalen Royals out of Utah State. I love the story. I love the skill set. That'd be one I'd love a ton. Another guy I like, Jordan Watkins out of Ole Miss. Verticality for days. Shamire DK, receiver from Florida. A lot of speed, a lot of upside there. I'd love for the Bills to get one of those receivers. But probably in the order I gave them to you, especially Torrey Horton or Jalen Royals. At defensive tackle for the double dip, there are options. You've heard me talk all about Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, a war daddy. That would make me happy. I know that's not a nose tackle either, but he's a good football player. Josh Farmer, Florida State, still available. I think that's a very clean projection to the nose tackle row in Buffalo. And he's not 320 pounds, but he's 310 with 35-inch arms. Athleticism. CJ West out of Indiana. That dude's a dude. I'll tell you that. Watch him play the run. That's fun tape. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland, another one of my draft crushes. So there's some opportunities to double dip at D tackle, and I'd love to see it happen. Tight end. You've heard me talk about this need for a tight end 3 that they need to draft and roster. Plenty of names there. Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. Thomas Fedone, Nebraska. Gunnar Helm, Texas, still available. Maliki Matavao out of UCLA, 260 pounds, 6'5", led UCLA in receiving. Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech doesn't help you as a receiver, but probably the best blocking tight end of the class. Special teams profile as well. Would love one of those. How about linebacker? Some depth there that you can bring on and give you more options to work with. Maybe bump Balin Spector off the roster. Some guys I like. Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon. Matchup style player. Chris Paul. Pooh Paul out of Ole Miss. I love him. Sean Dolak, UB, later on. That'd be a nice selection. I certainly think there's room to consider an offensive lineman. If you're going to pick 7 players, I certainly hope one of them's an offensive lineman. Just keep adding to that, right? I think the Bills have added some very intriguing players on day 3 when it comes to the offensive line, in the Cedric Van Pran Granger and the Tylen Grable. You've had some, like a UDFA like Alec Anderson. Wouldn't mind seeing an investment there. Never hurts, especially you got 7 picks on day 3. And there's some running backs out there. Bashal Tootin out of Virginia Tech. Jarquez Hunter, Auburn. Bashard Smith out of SMU. Speed, receiving profile. Those guys would be very intriguing. So, the Bills get a few of the guys I just mentioned. Boy, I'm going to love day 3. But those are some of my favorite targets, as there's only one more day left in the 2025 NFL Draft. It's been fun so far. Excited to see what happens on day 3. And content is coming your way. I'm not going to wait till Monday to give you day 3 reaction. You're probably going to get a couple pods, because I don't think I can cover more than 3 players in a podcast. So the Bills wind up picking 6 players. You're going to get 2 pods from me. You're probably going to get 2 pods from me on Saturday. So just keep that in mind. There's content coming throughout the weekend. And I'm excited to break it all down. We have content coming in the Herd Mentality Substack. I've already posted my film breakdown of Max Harrison. 20 minutes of me breaking down the tape, showing you plays, showing you the highs and lows of what he is as a player. And I'm going to get to work on these 2 guys, Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders, and every player that the Bills draft. I'm going to do a film breakdown in the Herd Mentality Substack. So check that out. There's a link in today's show notes so you can visit and see what's going on there. And then that gets you into our Discord channel as well, where we've got over 1,700 Bills fans in there. Just a big group chat, basically. It's organized. It's an organized group chat. I do live events all the time, at least once a week. Been hanging out in there all draft long. So come be part of it and get those film breakdowns, get the additional content that I offer, and get into that Discord channel where we're having a ton of fun. Don't miss out. And we're going to start doing football 101 stuff here in the coming weeks, and a lot of stuff planned there. So don't miss out on any of that. All right, folks, that's it for today. And I'm excited to break down what happens on Saturday to close out the 2025 NFL Draft. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.